Our next speaker is Bryan Eagle. Bryan is the CEO of Glanris, which is based in the Memphis, Tennessee area. He's been working in biochar for quite some time, and his talk is going to be entitled Rice Hull and Rice Straw Biochar Applications.
So first thing I'm going to have to do is apologize for my presentation a bit here, because I'm presenting the results for the person that went before me and the person that went after me, because we were involved in both those studies. So there's going to be a bit of a recap on some of this, but just, really basically, we've been doing this. I don't know that we've been doing it that long. There are a lot of people here who've been doing it a lot longer than us. We've been doing this since 2019. Most of the work that we've done and the patents that we have are around the process that involves taking our major feedstock, which is rice hulls, and converting it into a water filtration media. We completed our LCA. Our stuff is listed on Puro. We've done, for us, I think one of the things that's really important is to work with universities that are doing the kind of research that you heard Lori talk about, and you'll hear Sumaya talk about on the applications here. And so we've worked in water filtration with a number of universities, concrete, asphalt. I mean, you name it, and if it's included in IBI, we probably touched on it at some point in time. And we've also had some experience in working with kiln design, because our material, rice hulls, are very light, and it can cause some unique problems in kiln design. So again, I'm going to repeat a little bit about what you've heard before. The statistics for me, again, are just amazing. About the concrete industry. I mean, this is the most widely used substance on Earth after water. The numbers vary depending upon who you talk to, but it's responsible for between 5 and 9% of CO2 emissions. A lot of people sort of say 8%, so we'll go with that. The aviation industry, the entire global aviation industry, is 2%. So it's 4 times the size of aviation. You saw the numbers over there. It's about one in terms of every ton of cement that we produce in terms of how much CO2 is released. 4.25 billion tons of cement are produced annually. We make a Manhattan of concrete every month. So at this point in time, we've already passed the point where concrete outweighs the combined carbon mass of every tree, bush, and shrub on the planet. We have literally paved paradise and put up a parking lot. So again, repeating, what Lori already took you through, but again, just to highlight a couple of things. Concrete is a mixture of a bunch of things, from the coarse aggregates, the fine aggregates, water, the cement, and other stuff. But the key here is that most of the carbon footprint of concrete comes from the cement, not from the other elements in there. So again, depending upon whose numbers you pick, that could be 80% of the embodied carbon in the concrete comes from cement. So a little bit about rice hulls. Rice hulls are a challenging material. For a lot of reasons. It's very lightweight, so that makes it difficult to pyrolyze in some ways. But there's a lot of rice hulls out there. As Kim said, we're in Memphis. Across the river from us in Arkansas is where 55% of the rice in the United States is grown. There are over 2 million tons of rice hulls generated in the United States every year, and they really don't know what to do with them. It's a lot of people have burned them for fuel. It's not a great fuel because of the high silica content in them. So, if you're burning them too high, you end up with glass in the furnace. You're burning them too low, you end up with silica ash. The silica ash has some potential applications, but it takes some management to be able to do that. So for us, Our biochar is roughly 45% carbon, 45% ash. Most of that is the silica dioxide. We are IBI certified. We've got a low hydrogen carbon ratio. And because of for us, because of the high ash content, we're at about 1.2 tons of CO2 sequestration for every ton of biochar we make. This is what it looks like under a microscope. So a couple of things here. Everybody says, "Well, that's an ear of corn, isn't it?" No, that's a rice hull magnified. And what you'll see here is a lot of the silica structures, and along in the second slide over there, you'll see the porosity along the edges and along the back of the material. So this is a microporous material, very low surface area. So from that standpoint, it has some properties. We've done a lot of testing, as we mentioned before. In the cement world, we worked with Colorado School of Mines. Lori sent her samples. UC Davis, you'll hear from Samaya in just a minute, and Mississippi State University. And they've done a number of different studies on this. Again, they've talked about that, and really trying to understand how biochar, and particularly for some of these things, how biochar would fit either as a replacement for cement or as an aggregate. Again, some of these are the stuff that's particular to our material from Colorado School of Mines, is pulling that out. They did a number of studies, as Lori already said, and what you'll see here is the red is the Portland cement and really kind of the control group. As you see, as you have increasing amounts of biochar substituted for the cement, you see increasing amounts of strength. Lori talked about that already in terms of the how that improves over time. They also did some studies looking at replacing the aggregate with our material, and you'll see that in the dark red. So the key thing that was sort of interesting to us is, and again, Lori touched on it, so sorry for the repetition here, is that at about a 30% replacement of cement, you're looking at at the ratios that we're talking about here, you're looking at 69% reduction in CO2. So that's a pretty hefty reduction overall in the carbon footprint. One of the other things that's interesting too, not so much from a biochar standpoint for us, because we're getting the carbon credits as it relates to the production of the material, but there are now some new standards for that are incentives for the concrete manufacturers, and that is that there are avoidance credits in these new standards that are coming out that allow for about a half a ton per ton of biochar used to replace the cement. Now, those are avoidance credits, so they're lower value necessarily, but there are some economic incentives when you do this beyond just the ecological incentives. Again, stealing a little bit from the next presenter for Samaya, looking at the same sort of data in a slightly different way. What you see here is the ordinary Portland cement on the far left of the slide here. This is the 7-day, 28-day, and 90-day studies. The rice hull biochar, again, similar to and this, by the way, is at a 20% replacement. Similar compression strengths at their formula to ordinary Portland cement. And compared to some of the other biochars out there, again, similar. Some of them perform better, some of them perform less. One of the key things here that again, Lori touched on, that was a real driver in this is the pozzolanic reactivity. And this is really solely because of the high silica content. So while it doesn't create a great high carbon content, the rice hull biochar does have some interesting properties that can be leveraged in the silica for us in water filtration and also here in cement, because that pozzolanic reactivity, as Lori said earlier, is really what drives the glue and the cementatious properties of the material. The Mississippi State findings are interesting because they were looking at some other areas here. They were really interested in ways in which they could improve the insulating properties and the sound absorption properties. And what they found, again, similar to what Lori has found, and again, I'm sure what Samaya is going to talk about, is that the biochar, particularly with the high silica, accelerated the cement hydration and thus the hardness. That the cationic exchange capabilities created some additional binding components there. But what was really interesting to them was the improvement in thermal insulation of the material. This did significantly improve the R value of the material, and that the biochar increased the sound absorption coefficient of the concrete in the 200 to 2,000 hertz range. So again, additional benefits beyond the environmental and potentially the compression strength of the material. So in conclusion, I think again, as other people have said, there's an opportunity for biochar overall, whether it's has high silica content or not, to be used as a replacement in the aggregates. The high silica biochar, works well as a cement replacement. We've seen that, and it can improve again under certain formulas the hardness of the concrete, the insulating properties of the concrete, and the sound absorption. I do want to touch on a couple of other things. Again, so that my mind is not just a complete repetition of the people that went before me and after me on this. One of the things that is certainly daunting here in looking at this as an opportunity, because for those of you out here who are biochar producers, we're all trying to find sort of the killer app out here in this. The numbers are truly staggering in concrete. So there's a heck of an opportunity, I think, for all of us to go after this. The struggle with us is going to be, certainly convincing people that they should switch to a new material, as has been mentioned here before. This is going to be a struggle. I do think there are people out there working on this and developing these products to push in that regard. But it's going to take a while to get the engineers, the architects, and certainly a lot of the industry to adopt new technologies. This is a heavily regulated industry for good reason. You screw up that building and it falls down, people get hurt and die. So it's not, they're not going to embrace this change easily. But there are some opportunities here, and I think one of the things that I want to highlight is some of the other products that we're working with beyond just the concrete mix, which are pavers and architectural tiles, things that are non-structural. You have the same opportunity with these in order to provide green materials. In a lot of ways, it's a lot more attractive to the end consumer because these are consumer-based items. And since it's non-structural, you don't have to have the same issues addressed that you would with the architects and the engineers. And there's a lot of application for this. I mean, from pavers and tiles to benches and counters, et cetera. There's a lot that can be done with this. And there are a number of people right now in this industry who are beginning to address that. And the good news there is, as Lori said, there was a lot of concrete poured here. 11 million tons in the state of in the state of California last year. So if you start talking about a 30% substitution there, or even a 3% substitution from a weight or volume standpoint, that's a lot of biochar. It should be great, but it's hard for any of us at that point at today to look at those kinds of volumes. When you're looking at architectural tiles and these sorts of things, it's much easier to be able to address the volume needs for those guys. So again, thank you, and I'm sorry for the repetition of the people before and after me, but thank you for your time.
Thanks very much, Bryan. Now we have time for questions.
So while rice is ubiquitous or everywhere, but it doesn't grow everywhere, are there other agricultural residues, cottonseed hulls or peach pits or other things that you would recommend that have similar compositions to rice hulls? I know that's your area, but I'm sure you've studied all of that. So are there other types of things with high silica content that we might look at? Because concrete does get made everywhere, so we got to get it to them where they need it.
Yeah, so a couple of important points there. Concrete is made everywhere, and it's very localized. So that's a great opportunity for local producers of biochar to be able to supply. So the short answer is yes. There's a lot of other agricultural feedstock out there, or waste products out there that are high in silica. Most of the grasses are, bamboo. A lot of those have high silica content as well.
Hi, and thank you for this great presentation. Following this even more great presentation, I have to say, with more details on scientific things, so more for me, but maybe different for others.
Get ready for the next one, because there's even more.
Yeah, but you already really paved it well. One comment, you said rice hull is bad in incineration because of the high silica glass content that you will get in the ashes. Well, I recommend that you use it in the cement producing process directly as an alternative fuel, which can be done, and then you have the silica right where you want it in the first place. But I have a question. You said something about aggregates that you used, or you looked into using biochar directly as aggregates. So is that as they come, as they're produced, or did you possibly look into making a cement biochar composite aggregate type of thing?
Yeah, good question. As Lori mentioned, and as I'm sure others are going to talk about here, the milling was critical to the cementatious properties. On the aggregate side, there was no milling. They're just used as is. Now, I don't know if you've ever seen rice hull biochar, but if you look at it real hard, it breaks down. It's very friable. There are other biochars, certainly in an aggregate, that may provide different properties. Some that are much harder, shell biochars, some hardwood biochars that might provide more strength. I don't know. That's not our feedstock there. We just provided it directly in its current form. But I'll tell you, when you mix it in its current form with rice hull biochar, it's going to end up pretty fine. Yeah.
I was just wondering, I heard that one of the hesitancies in the concrete industry is the fire reactivity of biochar in concrete. Did you guys do any testing on that?
We didn't. We've heard that. We didn't. There are others, I think, that have looked at that.
Could you repeat the question, because I'm not sure if
Oh,
everybody heard
yes,
it.
sorry. It was about, the question really boils down to, hey, you're putting this, you're putting charcoal into concrete, and we're very worried about, is that going to catch fire? In the UK, there was a very notable issue with that, and I forget the name of the tower that's right there next to Kensington.
Grenville.
I'm sorry?
Grenville Towers.
Thank you, Grenville Towers. And that has caused the UK regulators to really question the amount of this type of product that can be flammable to be used in those kinds of products. But again, from what we're talking about, we're not dealing directly with any of the concrete manufacturers, et cetera. We're just doing the research on that. The only thing that we're dealing with are these, consumer end products, and that really hasn't been an issue because a lot of this stuff is outdoors, Yeah.
Any other questions? Well, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you,
Really
guys.
appreciate it. That was an excellent presentation.
Biochar.org appreciates the support of our sponsors, exhibitors, presenters, and attendees. We look forward to seeing you at our next conference in September 2025.